Okay, so let's get started. In this video tutorial, we're going to follow from what we did in class. So we took the playground assets and imported it into a bolt scene. So as you can see in front of me here, I'm just going to make them the same view. I've got my level that I've been working over the past few weeks in term 1, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, like we did in class, I'm going to recreate the menu, start menu, create a pause menu, just so that you have a full rounded project when you submit at the end of the term. So I'm going to start by going to File, New Scene. So I'm just going to start with a new scene here, and I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to call this menu, however you want to write it. I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. And before I even get started, I'm going to go to File, Build Settings, and make sure the menu and the stuff that I want to be built will be inside of here. If it's not in here, it won't be built when you build the game at the end of the term. So I'm going to add the menu as the first one and week 3 as the second one, because week 3 is my level. I'm also going to just rename this week 3 to level 1, just so that it makes a little more sense. Okay, so here is my UI menu. This is where I'm going to create it. I'm going to start by going Game Object, UI. I'm going to create a button. Now you'll need to zoom out to see the canvas. There's the canvas, this white/gray rectangle. I'm going to select the button, just position it somewhere in the middle. I'm also going to, off the bat, make sure I set up my UI correctly. Now, just for safety's sake, and just for you at first year level, we're going to change the UI scale mode over here to scale with screen size, so that when the screen gets bigger, the buttons adjust accordingly. I'm going to select this button, just take a look through the game view. It seems a reasonable size, so we're going to leave it. And I'm just going to rename this button to Start. Let's just call it Start BTN for button. And I'm going to select the text and type Start, and then just TXT for text. And I'm going to also change what the text says to Start. So it's Start Game. I'm also probably going to scale it up and just change it. You guys are aware of how to add your fonts, so we're not going to go down that road. I'm just going to use the existing fonts in Unity. And the button itself, remember, you got your normal color. That's the color when the button has no cursor over it. So we're going to make that something like a yellow, orangey color. Highlighted color is the color it's going to be when the cursor's over it. So I'm just going to make that more towards the lime, like greeny color. Press color is the color that it's going to be when you click on the button. So I'm just going to make that red. And then I'll leave the selected color alone, and I'll leave the disabled color. So let's just test to see what that means. So you can see the colors on the right here. When I hover over it, it becomes that kind of green color. When I move the mouse, it becomes back the orange color. When I hover over and I click, you'll see it becomes red. And then that's pretty much it. I'm going to just do something, because you got a selected color here. I'm just going to copy my normal color and paste it over my selected color, just so that the two colors match. Even if the button's selected, at this point I just want it to be the original color. Okay, so now we got that button. I'm just going to go right click, and I'm going to duplicate that button. I'm going to rename that button to Exit BTN for button, and I'm going to rename the text to Exit TXT for text. I'm going to change what that text says to, let's just say exit, just to change things up. And I'm going to move this button down, so the two of them aren't necessarily on top of each other. Now this is where you should take a little time, design your UI, make it look a little different, add a little bit of character to it. I'm just going to select both of these buttons, kind of center it to the screen. Now that the buttons are done, we're going to do what we've done in class. Excuse me, my throat. We're going to add, let's just actually just do one more thing. I'm going to right click on the canvas. I'm going to go to UI, and I'm just going to add a image or a panel. So I'm going to add an image. I'm going to make the image the scale of whatever the UI the canvas is. So I'm going to click on this little icon in the top right here, and I'm going to select the bottom right one, so that it will fill the entire canvas. In order for that to work, we need to go to the left, put 0, top 0, right 0, and bottom 0. So all of these values up here need to be 0, so that the image takes up the entire canvas. I'm going to rename that to background image. And now this is the weird thing. In order for this to be layered correctly so the buttons are in front, in the canvas, the utmost object in your canvas is the one right at the back. So under your canvas, if you have your background image, that's right at the back. Then your start button comes second, and then the exit is the foremost button. That's why if I drag it in front, you'll see it covers the start button. Okay, so let's just see if I can find a image somewhere on my computer. I'm going to go under resources. I'm going to go under references. And I'm just going to grab one of these Spider-Man images, obviously. I'm just going to go select images here, so we got it selected, and I'm just going to drag this image directly into Unity. I'm going to select the background, and I'm just going to drag this image onto where it says source image on the image script. There we go. So now we have an image in the background, we have buttons, and now with this image, I just feel that the buttons should be off to this side here. It just kind of feels like it balances the image a little bit better. Okay, so now if we look through the game view, that is what we've got. So I would say I'm going to leave the menu as it is. I think that's more than enough. Let's do all the coding and the logic for this. So I'm going to do this directly on the canvas. I'm going to go add component. I'm going to type in flow machine. I'm going to add my flow machine. And straight away, I'm going to add these two button variables. So under the variable script on where my cursor is, you'll see that it says new variable name. Click in there. I'm going to call this start btn. And I'm going to add another one straight away called exit btn. Now you'll always notice the variable will come in as a null, which means there isn't actually a variable. It's got no variable type. So the start button needs to be a game object. Remember, like we spoke about in class, everything that's in the hierarchy here, whether it's an empty game object or a camera or whatever it is a game object because it exists in the world of Unity, inside of the world itself. So I've now selected game object for both of them, and in the start btn, I'm going to grab the start button. In the exit btn, I'm going to add the exit button. So they're both in there. Now we need to actually create the code that we need. So inside of the macro where it says none workflow, next to it you'll see there's a little new button. Click the new button. I created a folder called bolt scripts. I'm now going to go and completely delete all the ones we've done in class. I'm going to start from scratch. So this one I'm going to call main menu. There we go. The moment you create it, you'll see that your flow graph gets a start and an update. So we're going to delete both of these because we don't need them for this specific case. We're going to drag. I'm going to start with the variable of the start button. I want to drag that in. I'm going to drag off the right side because I want to get the button. And I'm going to type in on button clicked. If I could spell on button, so let's try that again. On button click. Okay, it's giving me crap, so I'm just going to break this, and I'm going to just right click, add unit, and say on button click. There it is. It says on button click. Inside of the brackets, it's an event GUI. So on button click. Now the button that needs to be pressed is the start button. So we're going to plug the start button in here. And when the start button gets clicked, this one here, it's going to fire off the event, and then I'm going to just drag off here, and we're going to say load scene. And we're looking for, there's all of these different options here, and we'll go through them throughout the year, but the top one is sufficient. We're going to load the scene by the name and what kind of mode. So over here, I'm going to try zoom in a little further, but that's about the extent. The name I want to load, so go to scenes on the side. I want to load level 1. So I'm going to type in level 1. So that's what I want to do. I want to load level 1 when I click on start. So let's just test that to see that if that actually happens. So if you look at the code over here, if I go up here, I hover over the button, I hit start, I have loaded into level 1. So now we know that that works. So now we need to do the other button. So just to speed up the workflow, I'm just going to copy these two variables, Control C, Control V, And I'm going to change the variable here just by clicking this drop down. I'm going to choose now the exit button variable. So when the exit button variable gets called, we're going to go on button click, and then we're going to do, all we want to do is just quit the application. So literally just type in the word quit. You'll see it's not the first one where it says exit code. Use the one just below it. It's application.quit with the round brackets. That is the one that you want to do. Now, as we did in class, and you'll realize you can't actually test the quit until you build your game. So even if I click exit, you can see the code is firing off inside of the flow graph, but you can't see that the application is actually quitting. And the other one works. So now that we've done that and it's good to go, we are pretty much done with our menu. Now, I'm going to do a little variation to what we did in class just to change things up. The name of the level here, we are going to use the same script, and I'm going to create a variable for this name. So we can just use the same script and a different variable. So inside of my variables on the right here, I'm going to call this level to load. And that's going to be a string. And we're going to call this level 1. We're going to just so I've given it the name. I'm going to just drag this into the scene. I'm going to move these down. I'm also going to comment them like we've done in class. So hold down Control, left click and drag. You'll create a group. Call this group to say exit game. And then the one above it, we're just going to drag this variable that we created directly into the top here so that we can load the level. Now this should work. If not, we'll come back and rectify it. And now I'm going to create another grouping by holding down Control and left clicking and drag, and call this one load game. There we go. Okay. Now if you want to change the color of these menus, and as far as I know, unfortunately all I can tell you is how to do that is by hovering over your cursor over the flow graph, hold down Shift Spacebar to make the window bigger so you have access to this window on this side here. And then we can just change the color of the grouping, which is really nice just to kind of color code things to be able to see what you're doing. Okay, so now that's the menu done. We're going to go copy all of this. So I'm going to select the canvas, select the event system so we can speed up the workflow. We don't have to recreate all of this. I'm going to go right click, go copy. I'm going to go to level 1. Right click somewhere inside of the hierarchy as long as you're not selecting anything, and just go paste, and you'll see that we've now added the menu here. I'm going to just, out of the canvas, I'm just going to delete the background. I don't want the background there. I just want to be able to see the buttons in the menu. I'm also going to reposition these buttons to be somewhere in the center of the screen. I'm also going to delete the existing canvas that I have, and sorry, I'm just using the same thing we used in class, so I'm going to be recreating all of this. So I'm going to remove this flow machine. I'm going to remove these variables so I have no duplicates. Remove. Do we need to? Yeah, okay, we'll just remove all of that. Okay, so now that we've got these buttons, they're all in here and they're all going to have the original code. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to rename this canvas to pause menu canvas, just so that I know what that is. Everything is going to be here. All we're going to change here, instead of loading level 1, we're going to load menu in here instead. That way we can use the same script. So once I've done that, I should be able to just click this button, start the game. I'm going to click start, it's going to take me to the start menu. Click start, it's going to take me to the game, and so on and so forth back. So now we just need to change what the text says. So I'm going to choose the start button. I'm going to rename this to main menu btn, just so that I know that takes us to the main menu, and the exit button can remain the same. I'm going to rename the text to main menu txt. Oh, it's already got that, so I'm just going to remove that. And I'm going to rename this to main menu. Just so that it says main menu. This one says exit. We could say exit game. We can probably say that. Let's just, what you put in these text blocks are up to you, whatever makes the most sense to you. Okay, so now that these buttons are working, I'm just going to do something we didn't do in class. I'm going to duplicate one of these buttons, and I'm going to create a restart level. So I'm just going to call this one restart btn for restart button, and I'm just going to change the text here to restart txt for text, and I'm just going to call this restart level. It's a little bit long, so let's just say restart. Okay, and then I'm just going to move this button to the top. So it's going to be in order of, you're going to want to restart, go to main menu, or potentially exit the game. So that's the plan. So those are the three buttons. So what I've done different from the last time is I just added one extra button that's going to do something. And all we're going to do here is I'm going to copy this one here. Go Control C. I'm going to put it above it. Control V. I'm going to rename this one to restart level, because that's what it's going to do. It's going to restart the level. I'm going to create a new variable here to replace that one. So let's do that. In the new variables here, I'm just going to call this restart and I'm going to make it a string, and I'm going to call this level 1 because that's the name of the level I want to restart. Okay, so that being done, we just need to change the end here to the, we actually need to add that button, so we need to add another game object variable. So I'm going to type in here and call it restart btn for button. We're going to click on game object, and I'm just going to drag the restart button into there, and I'm going to drag this into the scene, and I'm just going to replace this first one. So when the restart button gets hit, it's going to load restart. That's the level I want to restart, and it's going to go into your scene manager. Okay, so that should do the trick. So what's going to happen is if I start the game, I'm going to move the character this way. When I hit restart, you'll see that the character goes back to the beginning. Restart. So we can see the restart works. Main menu start works. Okay, now because of adding this extra piece of code, I seem to have unintentionally broken something. So I'm going to go to my main menu and just rectify the problem. Okay, start btn restart. Okay, so it's looking for hold on, let me just adjust my headset. It's looking for variables that do not exist. So for the time being, I'm going to create over here this variables here. I wonder if we can just copy it. I think we can just copy it. I'm going to try and copy it across from level 1. So I'm going to select my pause menu. I'm going to try and copy all of these, go across to menu, and see if I am capable of pasting component as new. Okay, it seemed to have installed it. Let's just try it again. Let me just try paste component values. Okay, so it's actually paste component values. Do not do paste component new. So remove this extra set of variables. So this should rectify any weird glitches or bugs or potential options of breaking. Okay, it's giving me crap. Let's just check why. Start should be a game object. Okay, so I didn't copy all of them correctly, so I'm going to make sure that it is copied correctly. And the start button lost its linking, so I'm going to grab start button, and exit button has lost its linking, and everything else should be fine. Restart, go to level 1, and this one should be blank because there is no current button at the moment for that. So let's just hope it works. Okay, so now it says it failed to load level. Has it forgotten what level I need to load? Build settings level 1. No, it is correct. So let's just check if my naming is different. So I'm just going to select this F2 and copy that name selection just to make sure that it is correct. Load level to load. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so that should do the trick. Apologies, because I copied all those variables, it copied the. There we go. Restart, main menu, start. Okay, good. There we go. Now that the menus are working, we are going to take a breath while I take a drag from my vape. And we're going to continue by making the pause menu actually turn on when you press the escape button. It can be really any button you want. But we need to start by disabling the pause menu canvas that I created. So right at the top, just underneath the inspector, you'll see this is how you activate and deactivate objects in Unity. So when it's off, whatever is happening on here, all these scripts and all this code is inactive. It does not work, it does not run, it does not get calculated. So keep that in mind. Sorry for the noise I'm making. This headset is bugging the crap out of me. And so we're going to turn it off so we can have all the appropriate settings that we want. We want it to be off when we start the game. Okay, so in class we added the script to the user interface. For this exercise I'm going to create a new game, empty game object. So go game object, go create empty. I'm just going to make sure all the settings here are 0, 0, 0. And I'm just going to rename this empty game object to UI underscore manager, just so that I'm going to put the script on here. So in future, I can just have all my code on this UI manager empty. It's an empty, so therefore it takes up no memory, no space. It's got no information on here that's relevant that will slow the CPU, the processing. So once that UI manager script's been game object, empty game object, hit the add component on the right side here, add a flow machine, create a new variable, a new script, go to bolt, and let's call this one pause menu. Actually, let's call it UI manager. Okay, so the UI manager gets started, and in class I made us delete the start, so we're going to do the same thing we did in class. I'm going to delete the start. And I'm going to start by listening for the button to call when I hit escape. Like we spoke about in class, if you go to edit, project settings, you go to input on the over here, you'll see where all of these presets for inputs are. The one we're going to use is this blue one down here called cancel. That is the name of the variable. So I'm going to right click and just copy that. And it's for the escape key and the joystick button 1. So it's set up for 2 inputs. So we're going to drag off here. We're going to say get button down. And we're getting the first one, input.get button down, and the name of the button. I'm going to add this. I'm going to try to find the right scaling where the UI doesn't break on this. There we go. And the name of the button just goes down here. So we just, because I copied it earlier, I'm going to go Control V. And what's going to happen is on every single tick, every frame, it's going to be listening for whether or not this button's being pressed. Remember, the orange is the color for a string variable. The purple is the color for a bool variable. So we're going to drag out of here, and you're going to see it's going to give you all the options that it can do in relation to the little pin that you're dragging. Apologies for why it's taking so long for mine to load. I'm going to try this again, and I'm going to search for branch to give it to help it out. Okay, I'm just going to drag from here and type in branch. Okay, sorry, my computer seemed to be doing something weird. So I dragged from the branch. Now, what do I want to test for? I want to test if the button has been pressed. So when I press the button, it's going to give me whether the button's been pressed or whether the button has not been pressed. That's all we're doing here. Okay, so I'm just going to go here, and I'm also going to hold down Control and create a grouping around it. I'm going to call this wait for input, because that's what it's doing. It's waiting for input. I want to change this color to something like an orangey color. That's up to you, so that we know what this section of the code is doing. From here, we need to start by creating a variable, and I'm going to show you something now so that I don't have to minimize the window. On the right side here, when you have maximum, you have graph, objects, scenes, apps, and saved. These are where your variables can be set. If you want a variable that can be shared in the scene, if you want a variable that can be saved, if you want a variable that's on a specific object, or if you want a variable only on a specific graph. So we're just going to go to object. I'm going to click here and add a variable. We're going to be adding one for the canvas or for the pause menu. So I'm just going to call this pause menu canvas. I'm going to hit enter to add it, and then we're going to obviously select the game object, and because it's in full screen mode, I don't want to drag it. I'm going to click the little circle here. I'm going to type canvas, and you'll see that my pause menu canvas shows up, and then I'm going to just add that to the scene. So I added my variable. So remember, that variable I just added can be found over here on the right. You can see that I've just added it there. And you can also add it inside the full screen mode of Bolt. Okay, so let's do this. So when I press the button, I'm going to do it exactly the same way we did in class, so you can see it. I'm going to drag off here, and I'm going to do set active. Again, my bloody thing is being full of crap, so I'm just going to drag off the true and type in set active. And it's the top one, game object dot set active value. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to drag which object do I want to activate. It's going to be the canvas that I selected. So this is just for testing, just to see if that it works. We're going to start the game. And now that I've readjusted my headset, I'm going to press escape, watch the code at the bottom here. Like a dumbass. Notice what I've done wrong. I have not enabled the bool value there, so when I hit it, now it'll turn on. So now that the menu's on, and again, like we did in class, you'll realize it's always firing true here. So we need to flip-flop or change between on state and off state. So I'm going to just right click on this line to break the connection. I'm going to put this somewhere at the bottom here. We're going to Control C this branch, Control V that branch, just to grab it again, create a new one. We need to add a new variable under the object section, and I'm going to call this one on underscore off. And remember, this is a bool, so the variable we're creating needs to be a bool. And by default, I'm going to say that the UI is off, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to drag that in, and I'm going to plug that directly into this bool here. Let's start managing the UI here. Hold on. Readjusting headset, this thing is so crap and so old. Okay, so I'm going to put a comment around this one. I'm going to call this, is it on or off? Just keep it simple. That's what's checking for whether it is on or whether it is off the UI canvas. Just going to add a color, and now we're going to actually do the on and the off. So if it is currently off, we're going to turn it on here. So it's going to be on. And remember, like we did in class, we're getting the variable, but now we need to set the variable. And remember the shortcut I showed you? If you hold down Alt and hover over whichever variable you want to drag in, so in this case the bool, you will get the set for that variable. So there you're going to be able to set this variable. And because there's no little tick box like there is on the game object set active, we need to just drag from this bottom input node and type in bool. Oh jeepers, will you stop being full of crap? Yeah, what is up with my, hold on, my bolt is a little wonky. I'm going to just add it as a bool literal. So my bolt isn't behaving, it's not behaving, full stop. Okay, so what we need to do is we're going to tell it to turn the UI on, and then tell the variable, basically tell this that it is on. There we go. Then we're going to do the one whole section in class. We didn't do it. We did a little bit at a time. So down here, what we need to do is when we turn this on, we want to pause the game. So drag from here and do time scale. And we want to set the time scale to be 0 so that it will not, the whole game will come to a halt. It will stop. It will pause. I'm going to Control C, Control V just to put it up here. And I'm going to drag from the true. So if this turns on the UI, this one needs to turn off the UI. So we're going to disable the UI here, and we're going to disable the bool so that it can go from here back down to here. And now we're going to comment both of these out, group it, and this one's going to be off. This one is going to be on. Make it green for on, make it red for off. Okay, so let's test it, and then as we did in class, you're going to realize we're going to have a problem. So just to show you, I'm going to jump around, and when I jump, I'm going to hit escape. You'll notice that the game comes to a halt, the character stays in the air, we're able to go wherever we want, and then what I can do is just hit escape again, and you'll see the character froze. Simple reason is when I copied all of it across, I didn't set the time scale back to 1. There we go. Now it's back. So the time scale, so to give you again a talking like we did in class, 0 means there's no movement, completely frozen, and 1 means you're getting the full speed of the game at 100%. If I were to put this time scale to 3, for example, it's going to make your game run 3 times faster. But not in the beginning. The beginning it will go normal speed. Once I start the game and I come back out, notice how much faster the game is going. Look how the character is behaving. So if you want to keep in mind, you can do slow-mo effects, you can speed it up, kind of do a time lapse, that sort of thing. Okay, so the biggest issue we're going to have is when I exit the game by hitting this button, when the menu's in, the time scale is set to 0. So there lies the problem. When we come back into the game, the time scale is still going to be 0. So I'm going to Control C this here and just come to the beginning here somewhere, and Control V, just paste it here. And I'm going to add a unit called start back from what we had originally in the beginning. So when the game starts, I want to make sure I set the time scale to be 1 just to cover my bases. I'm going to comment this, set time scale at start of game. There we go. That's exactly what it does. At start of game, set the time scale to be 1. So let's test if all of this works. This first video will be over. We will come back for the next video to do sprite sheets. So here we go, moving around, everything works fine. Exit. I'm going to say restart game. It restarts the game. If I say main menu, I go back to the main menu. If I say exit, it will exit the game. If I click start, I'll come back here again. Time scale is back to 1. I'll be able to collect all this stuff. I'll be able to pause the game, restart the level if I want. So the entire system works. So I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to save this video, and then I'm going to come back to the next video. And then we'll continue with sprite sheets. Cheers.